Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Borgonzo here. What's next? The verdict is in. The trial of Derek Chauvin has concluded. Guilty on all three charges. Second-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter, and third-degree murder. If the judge gives out the max sentence, Derek Chauvin will spend the rest of his life in prison. I don't think he will. I know it's going to be appealed. There are external circumstances outside of the trial that basically said, yeah, we're going to appeal this and possibly, just possibly, overturn the verdict. Scary thought. But in this video, we are going to take a look at the verdict. We are going to take a look at comments made prior to the verdict. And also, where do we go from here? Where do we as a nation go from here? You got half the nation who basically feels that they've been excluded from how true justice works. And then you have the other half of the nation who says, F the law, we're going to do what we want, whether it's in the White House, Congress, the media, social media, and also the man and woman on the street. Normally, I would give my thoughts at the end of this video, but I'm just going to give you a taste from my point of view. Everything that I've seen over the past year, and you kind of don't want to rehash, but when it comes to the burnings, the looting, the rioting, Wendy's being set on fire, police departments being burned, over a dozen cities being damaged to the total of over $2 billion in damages. Cops getting shot, cops getting killed, residents, neighborhoods being upended, businesses destroyed that never will come back again in these cities, especially in the city of Minnesota. All because of a stupid, ignorant cop. Now, we can debate whether this was intentional, his knee on George Floyd's neck. We can debate that all day. What is the old adage? You can debate till the cows come home. Was the verdict the right verdict? We can debate about that too. We can debate whether overall this was the right thing to do. When you have circumstances like Maxine Waters, and I'm going to show a little bit of her insensitivity, her ignorance, her stupidity, her assholery. That is Maxine Waters. Who basically walks into a room, throws gasoline, throws a hand grenade, walks out of the room, watches the room blow up and burn down, and then complains, why did this happen? When you have a dementia-ridden president who basically says, I'm praying for the right verdict. Question is, why is Biden chiming in? Why is he chiming in on this? He can be asked a question, but basically, just like his predecessor, I'm sorry, not his predecessor, his former boss, Barack Obama, who was asked regarding his friend, Professor Gates, who was trying to get into his house in Massachusetts and forgot his keys. Neighbor called the cop on him. Cops came, arrested him. The neighbor didn't know any different. The neighbor just saw somebody going into another person's house or trying to attempt to go into that other person's house and did the right thing. But yet Obama, instead of backing off and saying, hey, you know what? We don't know what the facts are. We don't know what the circumstances are. I can't really give an educated answer to this. No, chimed in with calling the police. They acted stupidly in that case. Excuse me. This is an ongoing problem. When you have those weighing in, bureaucrats weighing in, who have no law enforcement education whatsoever. And to me, I don't care if you're on the right. I don't care if you're on the left. Don't stick your nose in where you don't belong. Stop being an ignorant. But then again, when it comes to both sides and they are equal, they just can't help themselves. But in this case, being that the Democrats have one party rule, and of course the mainstream media in bed with these politicians, this is what you're going to get. But I can go on, but I'm going to give a brief my take at the end of this. But let's take a look how this began. Jury delivers verdict in Derek Chauvin case. This was updated at 5:08 p.m. yesterday. The jury found Derek Chauvin guilty of unintentional second-degree murder. The jury found him guilty of third degree, and also the jury found him guilty of second-degree manslaughter. Okay. The jury had reached a verdict, which the judge read just after 5 p.m. Eastern. Black Lives Matter and Antifa morons and thugs are likely to protest and even engage in violent rioting, regardless of the guilty verdict. That's key. Regardless of the verdict, they were going to do what they do because that's what cockroaches do. They don't care if you shine a light on them, they'll scatter. But once the lights go out, they're back out to party. On Monday night, after the case was handed to the jury, protesters marched and a church was set on fire. Peaceful protesters. 2021. Although the cause of the fire remains unclear. Yeah, okay. Last week, after a police-involved shooting, riots broke out in a city nearby, illustrating just how much of a powder keg Minneapolis is. Cities are preparing for another wave of unrest similar to the riots following the deaths of George Floyd. These riots damaged no fewer than 700 buildings in Minneapolis last year, 12 structures wholly destroyed, burnt to the ground. Tragically, the riots ostensibly, I know I'm butchering that word, wow, aimed at combating racism, destroyed black lives, black livelihoods, and black monuments. While Americans should hope and pray for impartial justice, Maxine Waters demanded a guilty verdict, encouraging protesters to get more confrontational if Chauvin is acquitted. Even President Dementia weighed in, quote, praying that the verdict is the right verdict. Now with that, we're going to jump. This was just before, these were hours before.
Got a verdict that they say guilty, 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 and if we don't, we cannot go away.
And not just manslaughter, right? I mean,
oh no, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree.
Congresswoman, what happens if we do not go get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I love it because
I didn't hear
he's,
you.
What
he's
happens?
asking her the
protesters
poignant
do?
questions.
Well, we got to
What
stay
do the
on the street.
protesters do?
And we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
Boom. Now, we're going to switch. This comes out of Breitbart. Black Lives Matter chants F the National Guard after Chauvin verdict in Minneapolis. As you can see, the lovely peaceful protests. Black Lives Matter protesters in Minneapolis chanted F the police. I'm sorry. Well, they've said that before too. F the National Guard after taking to the streets. Their march immediately followed the conviction by a Minnesota jury of former police officer Derek Chauvin for the murdering of George Floyd nearly 1 year ago. Immediately following the conviction, protesters began moving to the streets and chanted F the National Guard. F the National Guard. Chants from protesters gathered outside the courthouse this afternoon. F the National Guard. A woman yelled into her megaphone, F the National Guard. The crowd yelled back. The woman yelled, get the F out. Earlier this week, someone fired shots at a Minnesota National Guardsman and Minneapolis police officer as they stood guard in a neighborhood, Breitbart reported. The incident occurred about 4:20 in the morning on Sunday. The shots came from a passing vehicle. Why? Oh, okay. Drive-by shooting. Yeah, really. That's original. A guardsman suffered minor injuries from shattered glass. No one sustained major injuries in the incidents, thank God. Minnesota's governor, Tim Walz, deployed up to 3,000 National Guard troops to the Minneapolis area after the shooting of Brooklyn Center's Dante Wright in anticipation of the verdict of the Derek Chauvin trial. Now we're going to switch gears again. Back to our old friend Maxine drops a bomb waters. This comes out of the Blaze Media. Democrats kill resolution to censure Maxine Waters over her comments encouraging protests to, quote, get more confrontational. Let's make this very clear. Even if it were a Republican-led House and Republican-led Senate, maybe a censure would get passed, but this is a Democratic one-party rule. It's not going to happen. Unless you have a majority of Democrats who have the balls to step up and say, you know what, Maxine Waters is trash. She needs to be not only censured, but she needs to be thrown off. Worst case, forced to, step down as Congresswoman. Best case, take her off all committees. Kind of like what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene, even before she stepped 1 foot into Congress, she was stripped of her committees or any chance of getting on those committees, because she supported some guy named Trump, because that's fair. But, of course, this is the Hague. Let's move on. Democrats successfully killed a resolution Tuesday to censure, not a surprise, Maxine Waters over comments she made calling protesters to get more confrontational if the Derek Chauvin trial didn't go their way. Of course, we all know the verdict. Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called for the censure resolution after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi refused to condemn the comments and defended Waters. Oh, I got something for her too. Chairman Waters' quote-unquote actions are beneath the dignity of this institution, tweeted McCarthy on Tuesday. I give points to Minority Leader McCarthy for making those comments, but at the same time, we could go into chapter and verse of things that deserve censure, but never. Congresswomen and men who should have gotten censure for things that they said that never came to pass. But that literally would take me years. Quote, they raised the potential for violence, directed lawlessness, and may have interfered with a co-equal branch of government. I just introduced this censure resolution to hold her accountable, he wrote with the text of the resolution added. All right. I just wanted to put all this out there. And let me wrap this up with this story out of PJ Media. The morning briefing. Chauvin guilty, but unhinged leftists still complain. Shocker. Chauvin's verdict predictably leaves commies still miserable and whining. I'm binge watching Criminal Minds while I work because it's cheerier than the day-to-day news in America. True. I'm only on season 5. Never tell me I don't know the struggle. Another chapter closed in the tragic saga of George Floyd. Hence the words, another chapter. The book's not over. You're not closing the book and putting the book down. This is what the leftists do. The leftists will continue to roll this, and they don't care. But I think we all know this won't be the final chapter. This is going to be an American societal horror version of Proust's In Search of Lost Time, and we're only about 1/3 of the way through the first of the 7 books. Of course, Derek Chauvin found guilty on all counts. This was the best possible outcome for all people who couldn't wait to get in front of the cameras and demand that justice be done. Our idiot fake president even put down his crayons long enough to make the stupid comment that he prays for the right decision. My thoughts. I gave them briefly in the beginning of the video, but this will be very quick and brief. What we've seen over the past year, including the conclusion of this story, and I agree wholeheartedly with the PG Media commentator, reporter, that this is not over. The left will not allow this to end. Black Lives Matter and Antifa will not allow this to end. They've already said, watching Tucker this morning and news reports on my feed, that this is going to be ongoing. That justice has not been served. Even though Chauvin was found guilty, there are more dirty cops out there that need to be sought out and need to be brought to justice, or we will continue to do what we do, which is destroy cities, destroy people's lives, while you have a dementia-ridden president standing there looking the dope that he is. Then again, he learns from the master. When you have a pig's head dropped on a porch of a supposed defensive witness, and it turned out to be not the case. This was just another moronic attempt to intimidate. Even the judge himself said that Maxine Waters' comments could have detrimental effects in this case. Now, like I said in the beginning, this will be appealed. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It will be appealed and possibly, just possibly, overturned because of external grounds. And usually you're like, you know what? In a case, don't worry about what's going on here. Just concentrate what's going on here. But when you don't sequester the jury, and I was talking about this with my wife, is that there was no way, shape, or form that a jury, an unbiased jury, was going to be found for this case unless you found people who had their heads buried in the sand the last 2 years. Let's go 2 years. Let's go back to January of 2020, just to make sure. You weren't going to find people who knew nothing about this. Nothing. Not one. Unless it was somebody like a dementia-ridden president who basically sleeps, 23 out of 24 hours a day. You might have gotten lucky. You might have gotten lucky. But this is what we're going to have to deal with. The stupidity, the nonsense, the ignorance. And this is going to be ongoing. But one chapter is done. But sadly and tragically, there are going to be more chapters to this never-ending story because the left won't allow it. You know, why is this justice and where is the justice for, I don't know, Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a DC police January 6th, and yet we don't know who that cop is, and I'm sure they got him buried so deep, no one's going to find him, but then again, the media will try to memory hole this story, but when it comes to the George Floyd Chauvin story, they will continue to blast it out there on their megaphones to make sure you know. But with that said, I'm Jazz Broganzo. This is what's next. You want to see more videos just like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share it, hit that subscription button, slam that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.